Imagine taking a 13-year-old heir to a massive, highly lucrative real estate fortune.
Right.
Like a kid growing up with country clubs, private cars, just the absolute height of outer borough privilege.
Yeah, very insulated life.
Exactly. And then overnight, pulling him out of that environment and dropping him into a rigid, fiercely combative military academy.
Oh, it is a complete shock to the system.
It really is. You strip away the individual identity, you put him in a uniform and plunge him into this place where, well, every single interaction is a visible negotiation of dominance and rank.
Which completely disrupts the traditional narrative of the comfortable heir.
Yeah, yeah. And as a parent of two myself, I look at a decision like that and I am immediately fascinated by the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't make a move like that unless you are trying to forge a very specific type of psychological armor.
No, you don't. That sudden plunge into an environment defined by hierarchy and confrontation, it creates a baseline operational style. And that style essentially colors everything that follows.
And that is exactly where our stack of sources begins today. We are looking at one of the most exhaustively covered, polarizing, and frankly complex figures in modern history.
Donald J. Trump, the 45th and 47th President of the United States.
Right. Now, with my background as an investigative journalist, I've always found that the least interesting part of a story is simply what someone achieved.
Right. The end result is just the surface.
Exactly. The actual story, like the mechanics of it, is how they built that power base. We want to know how the engine works,
We want to get under the hood.
Yes. So our mission today, for you listening, is to map out the highly specific trajectory detailed in our sources. We're pulling from biographical documentaries, historical overviews, and recent news transcripts.
And we are answering a very core question here.
How exactly does a Queens-born real estate developer transition through multiple distinct industries, weave his own children into the deepest architecture of his operations, and capture the highest political office in the land twice?
It is a massive question. But before we unpack that engine, we need to establish the parameters of how we are handling this material today.
Yes, absolutely, because our sources contain highly politically charged content covering both left-wing and right-wing perspectives.
Including discussions of policies, legal battles, and major controversies.
Right, so we want to be absolutely clear. We are not taking sides or endorsing any viewpoints.
Not at all.
Our mission is strictly to impartially report, unpack, and analyze the factual claims and ideas contained within the original source material provided for this deep dive.
We are looking entirely at the mechanics, the strategies, and the sequence of events as they are laid out in these documents. We're leaving all the political judgments entirely to you, the listener.
Right. Okay, so let's go back to that 13-year-old at the New York Military Academy, because the sources point to this as the foundational layer of his entire operational playbook.
It really is. I mean, you have to look at where he came from first. Born June 14th, 1946, in Queens, New York.
To Fred Trump and Marianne McLeod, right?
Yeah, Marianne was a Scottish immigrant. And Fred Trump, his father, was a titan of outer borough real estate.
Mostly Brooklyn and Queens.
Exactly. And it was an empire built on volume, navigating rent control, and just strict pragmatism. It was not glamorous.
No, not at all. But Donald's early life was this wild blend of privilege and strict discipline. He attends the Kew Forest School initially.
Right, before being sent away to the military academy at 13.
Where, according to the sources, he really developed a strong work ethic, a deeply competitive spirit, and clear leadership traits.
Yeah, that combative persona was forged right there. And then we look at his education. He goes to Fordham University for a bit.
Before transferring.
Yeah, he transfers to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania to get an economics degree.
So he gets the degree, comes of age, and steps into the family business. But there is this immediate, aggressive divergence from his father's model.
Oh, absolutely. He doesn't just want to expand the Queen's empire.
No, he sets his sights directly on the Manhattan skyline. And okay, let's unpack this for a second. Moving into the Manhattan real estate market in the 1970s. As a journalist, I look at that and it's like a rookie local reporter walking into a massive national newsroom during a huge scandal and immediately demanding the front page lead.
That is a great analogy.
Going straight for Manhattan was a massive calculated risk. Was this sheer ambition, or did that military academy discipline give him some kind of strategic edge?
Well, the jump to Manhattan in the 1970s, it really cannot be overstated in terms of sheer strategic audacity.
The city was in rough shape.
Rough shape is putting it mildly. If you look at the economic climate of New York City at that time, it was teetering on the brink of absolute bankruptcy.
I mean, the city was hemorrhaging residents.
Crime was soaring, and the traditional established developers were essentially just playing defense. They were holding on to their existing assets and just waiting for the storm to pass.
So stepping into that environment as a relatively untested 20-something from Queens, the institutional players must have looked at him as entirely out of his depth.
They absolutely did. But this is exactly where the specific psychological conditioning of that military academy background begins to manifest as a business strategy.
How so?
Because in a highly depressed market, institutional decay creates a vacuum.
Ah, I see.
The sources detail how he specifically targeted the Commodore Hotel. It was an aging, failing property right next to Grand Central Terminal.
A prime location, but a dying building.
Exactly. And he didn't just buy it, he executed this staggeringly complex deal to transform it into the Grand Hyatt New York.
And the mechanics of that deal are what really catch my eye in the documents, because he didn't just walk into a bank with his father's money.
No, not at all.
He orchestrated an unprecedented public-private partnership. He somehow managed to secure a massive multi-decade tax abatement from a city government that was just desperate for any sign of revitalization.
It was brilliant leverage.
But how does someone with no Manhattan track record convince the city, the major banks, and the Hyatt Corporation to back such a high-wire act?
Well, the sources explain that it comes down to a complete mastery of leverage and perception. He understood that in a crisis, projecting absolute certainty is actually more valuable than having a deep resume.
Wow. Projecting certainty over experience.
Right. He leveraged the sheer desperation of the city. He didn't present the Grand Hyatt as just a real estate transaction. He pitched it as a symbolic resurrection of Midtown Manhattan.
Oh, that is clever.
Yeah. So by securing the Hyatt partnership first, he used their institutional credibility to leverage the banks.
Okay.
And then he used the bank's capital to leverage the city for the tax abatement.
It was this circular mechanism of borrowing credibility from one entity to satisfy another. He essentially willed the structure into existence through sheer force of narrative.
Exactly. And when that glass facade finally goes up, it proves his ability to revitalize aging properties. It doesn't just reflect the Manhattan skyline, it announces his arrival as a major player.
It built his reputation for boldness. But, building physical structures eventually hits a ceiling.
Right, you can only buy so many prime lots in Manhattan.
Exactly. And that physical limitation seems to trigger the next massive shift detailed in our source material. As we move into the 1980s, his strategy shifts from just accumulating real estate to constructing a ubiquitous personal brand.
This is a crucial evolution. The sources track a deliberate pivot where the name itself, Trump, becomes the primary asset, completely separate from the brick and mortar.
And look at the avenues he chooses to expand that empire. Aviation, hospitality, entertainment.
Right, his name becomes entirely synonymous with luxury and opulence.
He launches the Trump Shuttle, which was this airline catering specifically to East Coast business travelers.
And very visible.
And then he buys the Plaza Hotel in New York, which is just an iconic cultural landmark.
Right. Slapping your name on an airline or a historic hotel, though, that is fairly traditional mogul behavior.
Yeah, wealthy people have always bought infrastructure to cement their status. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. He takes a leap that fundamentally alters his trajectory.
The pivot to television.
Yes. The massive pivot to producing and hosting reality television with The Apprentice, that shifts the dynamic entirely. He is no longer just selling the stage, he is starring on it.
It was a total cultural phenomenon.
Did The Apprentice fundamentally change his public persona from just a businessman to a household character?
Oh, absolutely. What's fascinating here is the synergy between his different industries.
How so?
Well, the airline and the Plaza Hotel created the aura of wealth, right? But traditional wealth is usually distant.
Yeah, you read about it in the Wall Street Journal.
Right. But The Apprentice beamed that aura of wealth directly into American living rooms every single week.
Right into the home.
Yes. And the mechanics of the show are a masterclass in behavioral conditioning. If you look at the set design, the dramatic lighting, the editing, every single frame was engineered to project infallible executive command.
I remember the boardroom scenes. They were always so intense.
Exactly. The boardroom was lit to make him look incredibly imposing, and the editing stripped away all the messy, ambiguous reality of actual corporate negotiations.
It distilled business down to a purely binary outcome.
You win or you are fired.
You're fired. It became a national catchphrase. He established himself as the ultimate arbiter of success.
The boss.
Right. For millions of Americans who had never set foot in a Manhattan boardroom, he was the picture of corporate dominance.
And it bypassed all the traditional media filters. He created a direct, unmediated parasocial relationship with the public.
That is such an important point. But managing an empire that spans real estate, aviation, landmarks, and a primetime television show that requires a massive organizational structure.
A huge apparatus.
And this is where we transition into the inner circle, the family dynasty. The sources detail his 3 marriages.
Right, to Ivana, Marla Maples, and Melania.
Right. With Ivana, he had Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric. With Marla, he had Tiffany, and with Melania, Barron.
And the sources highlight the incredibly crucial roles that his eldest children, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, played within the family business.
They held key positions within the Trump organization. Now, speaking directly as a parent of 2, I relate to this on such a practical level.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as a parent, I know how hard it is just to get kids to agree on a weekend schedule.
Let alone co-manage a multinational empire.
Exactly. It seems like a recipe for chaos. How did relying so heavily on his children insulate him? What does it tell us about his leadership style?
Well, it connects directly to the broader picture of trust and loyalty. By elevating Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric to key organizational roles, he ensured his brand remained tightly controlled.
Because family is invested differently than a hired executive.
Exactly. It solves the ultimate vulnerability of any sprawling empire, which economists call the principal agent problem.
Right, where the hired CEO might have their own personal incentives that conflict with the owners.
A hired executive might prioritize their own resume, leak to the press to look good, or just jump to a competitor. But when the brand is literally your family name, your children are stakeholders in the deepest, most existential sense.
Their entire reputation and inheritance are tied to the company's survival.
Right. By placing them in those key nodes of power, he insulated himself against institutional betrayal. It mirrors historical family dynasties where business and politics are deeply intertwined.
It creates a closed loop where absolute loyalty is the primary currency, but it also demands an incredible dual existence from those kids.
Oh, the pressure must have been immense.
They had to navigate the relentless scrutiny of the tabloid press, the public eye, all while managing actual corporate levers. And later, as the sources note, they transition right into politics, serving as key advisors during his presidency.
Which brings us to the ultimate pivot.
Right. How did the Queen's real estate mogul, airline owner, and reality TV star actually capture the White House?
It is an incredible sequence of events.
We're looking at the mechanics of the 2016 run. The sources mention he had flirted with running previously, but he officially announced his candidacy in 2015 for the Republican nomination.
And his campaign style was entirely unprecedented.
Brash, unconventional, no holds barred. The whole thing was built around the promise to make America great again.
And he had a very specific target demographic.
Right.
The sources show he resonated profoundly with voters who felt left behind by globalization, by deindustrialization, and by the traditional political establishment.
They felt completely abandoned.
Exactly.
And his approach, I mean, the investigative journalist in me looks at this and is just floored. He completely bypassed traditional political gatekeeping.
Completely.
Traditional politicians spend years quietly courting the establishment, memorizing policy papers, asking the public for permission to lead. He didn't do any of that.
No, he threw the playbook out the window.
It's as if he treated the campaign not like a politician asking for votes, but like a master marketer who already knew exactly what the audience was hungry to buy.
That is exactly what he did.
How critical was his entertainment background to this specific victory? I mean, defeating Hillary Clinton in 2016 to become the 45th president.
It was absolutely foundational. His ability to capture the public's imagination, which he had honed over decades in NYC real estate and reality TV, allowed him to completely dominate free media.
Earned media versus paid media.
Exactly. Traditional campaigns spend hundreds of millions on TV ads. He understood that cable news networks are profit-driven entertainment entities. They need high-stakes conflict.
So by delivering this highly provocative, unscripted rhetoric at his rallies, he guaranteed the networks would carry his speeches live for free.
He turned political debates into highly rated television events. He dominated the news cycle with a single tweet.
While other candidates were issuing dense white papers, he was branding them with memorable nicknames that just stuck instantly.
And his rallies became these massive real-time focus groups. He would test material, read the crowd's energy, and adjust his messaging on the fly.
Direct-to-consumer political marketing.
Exactly. And that direct relationship allowed him to capture the presidency.
So having won the office, how did the CEO and TV star actually govern?
Well, the sources outline a very unconventional term.
Let's cover the policies, the controversies, and the unique communication style of the 45th presidency. Domestically, the sources point to some major moves.
Significant tax cuts were a huge priority.
Right. And a massive rolling back of environmental regulations,
He also took a very hardline stance on immigration.
including the highly controversial travel ban targeting several Muslim-majority countries,
Yes. And if we look at foreign policy, it was all guided by the America First doctrine.
which really highlights how he transferred his real estate negotiation tactics to the global stage.
Absolutely. The renegotiation of NAFTA into the USMCA, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, is a perfect example.
Right, because traditional diplomacy relies on preserving the status quo, avoiding market destabilization at all costs.
But he approached it like a Manhattan boardroom deal. He was willing to use the threat of massive tariffs to create a crisis.
He manufactured leverage.
Exactly. And once the markets were sufficiently destabilized, he used that leverage to force Mexico and Canada back to the negotiating table.
And we see that same reliance on personal force of will with North Korea,
Yes, becoming the first sitting U.S. president to meet a North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un.
which completely shocked the diplomatic establishment. Normally, a summit like that is the final reward after years of lower-level negotiations.
But he leapfrogged the entire State Department apparatus. He believed his personal charisma could achieve a breakthrough where institutions had failed.
It was highly unorthodox. And then we hit the crisis that really defined the end of his first term, the COVID-19 pandemic.
A completely unprecedented global event.
And the sources depict a response with intense contrasts. On one hand, you have the rapid implementation of travel restrictions and Operation Warp Speed.
Which was a massive mobilization to accelerate vaccine development.
Right, getting those vaccines out was a huge logistical undertaking. But simultaneously, the sources highlight the intense scrutiny over his public downplaying of the virus's severity.
Right, the off-the-cuff medical speculations during press briefings caused significant public confusion.
It seems like the pandemic was a massive stress test for his specific communication style, because a biological virus doesn't respond to PR or media dominance.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And the dissonance between the rapid mobilization of Operation Warp Speed and the chaotic messaging really accelerated the polarization of his presidency.
And the true engine of that polarization, according to the sources, was his relationship with the press.
It was highly adversarial.
He bypassed traditional channels entirely using Twitter. He popularized the term fake news.
He essentially fostered an all-out media war.
So what does this all mean? It's like he took the high-drama boardroom dynamic of The Apprentice and dropped it right into the White House briefing room. Did this constant friction with the media help him or hurt him?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it was a double-edged sword.
How so?
Well, by constantly attacking the press, he deepened the loyalty among his base. They saw him as a disruptor of the establishment, fighting a corrupt elite.
It created an informational shield. If the media reported a scandal, his base just saw it as a manufactured attack.
Exactly. But the flip side is that it simultaneously exacerbated social and political tensions across the broader nation. It created deep structural polarization.
Which perfectly sets the stage for our final section. The chronological progression from the turbulent end of his first term through unprecedented legal and physical challenges, culminating in his historic return to power.
It's an unbelievable sequence of events.
Let's walk through it. In 2020, he faces Joe Biden in an election marked by record voter turnout. He loses, but he fundamentally rejects the results.
Right, making widespread, though contested, claims of voter fraud.
And this refusal to concede culminates in the events of January 6, 2021.
The rally in Washington, D.C.
Right, and the subsequent violent storming of the U.S. Capitol by his supporters. This leads directly to his second impeachment.
Making him the only president to be impeached twice.
And the post-presidency turbulence just keeps accelerating. He faces ongoing legal challenges regarding his business practices and financial dealings.
And he's ultimately found guilty of felony charges related to hush money paid to Stormy Daniels.
He becomes a convicted felon, and then there's the assassination attempt.
The incident in Pennsylvania.
Shots are fired during a rally. He's quickly pulled away by Secret Service agents, bloodied, but he raises his fist to the crowd, later stating he was doing fine.
That visual was instantly iconic for his supporters.
As a journalist, if I pitched this storyline to an editor like, A president loses, faces 2 impeachments, felony convictions, and survives an assassination attempt, only to return to power.
They'd laugh you out of the room.
They would say it's completely unrealistic. But he defies all the odds to win the popular vote and become the 47th president in 2024, declaring, "America's comeback starts right now." How did his base's fierce loyalty survive all of this?
It speaks to the enduring power of his personality and the deep divisions in American society. He had spent years rewiring the psychological framework of his base.
So, to his supporters, every legal challenge and media attack wasn't a disqualification.
No, it only validated his status as a champion of the working class who was fighting a corrupt establishment. The legal weight didn't crush him, it martyred him.
Wow! And that loyalty propelled him right back to the White House. But here is the fascinating whiplash. The source is present.
The focus of his second term.
Exactly. After all this chaos and unprecedented legal peril, the policy achievements detailed for his second term as the 47th president are highly traditional.
It's a striking dichotomy.
The sources highlight a focus on infrastructure development, specifically passing a bipartisan bill to modernize roads and bridges.
And healthcare reform, focusing on drug pricing transparency to lower costs.
And even in foreign policy, while the America First branding is still there is a pragmatic realism strengthening alliances, focusing on cybersecurity and handling nuclear proliferation.
It shows that underneath the massive public persona and the constant institutional friction, there's a very calculated understanding of how to maneuver within the system to achieve legislative results.
It is an absolutely staggering trajectory.
It really is.
We've mapped the entire blueprint today, from learning the ropes at Fred Trump's side in Queens to dominating the Manhattan skyline with the Grand Hyatt.
Stamping his name on airlines, hotels, and primetime television.
Integrating his children, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, into the ultimate family business, and entirely reshaping the modern American political landscape as both the 45th and 47th president.
He completely bypassed traditional gatekeepers and redefined the mechanics of power.
We've talked extensively about how his background in business and entertainment shaped his presidency. We've looked at the wiring inside the walls.
We covered a lot of ground.
But I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over on your own. We've seen how his personal brand became the defining force of his political movement.
Right.
But here's something to think about. When an individual's personal brand becomes so indistinguishable from a major political party, what happens to that brand and that party when the individual finally steps off the stage for good?
That is the million-dollar question.
Can the structure stand without the original architect? Until next time, keep digging.